My name is Thad Graham. I am the education specialist for Family Services Incorporated, specifically the Victim Services Program. Today we are going to be looking at human trafficking and social media. So let's go ahead and get started. So of course, our mission here at Family Services is to provide resources to build healthier relationships and promote personal growth. Our vision is to engage with communities to meet the needs of their most vulnerable members. And as always, a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about human trafficking today, specifically human trafficking in social media, and more focused towards children. So if this is upsetting to you, please make sure you are taking your own mental health into accord. That is most important. And we want you to make sure that you are taking care of yourself first. Objectives for this afternoon. We are going to define human trafficking, discuss, of course, the different types of human trafficking. We are going to be more focused on commercial sexual exploitation of children, but we will discuss the other types as well. We will discuss the individuals involved in human trafficking and discuss the link between social media and human trafficking. So why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about human trafficking in Pennsylvania and specifically here in Blair County? Because I feel like sometimes I have repeated myself over and over again, but trafficking is happening here. We just, if you haven't seen the news, had a case here in Blair County where they brought down a large trafficking ring. Multiple individuals who were arrested, many victims, more people still to be identified, but it is proof that human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, is happening here in Blair County. And we're going to take a deeper dive look into what is trafficking, kind of dispel some of those myths that people think about, and talk about how social media plays a part in human trafficking. So first off, we need to define what human trafficking is. In its simplest form, human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some sort of labor or commercial sexual act. That simple. Force, fraud, or coercion. Someone is forced, they're tricked, or they're coerced into doing something, whether it's labor or a commercial sexual act. They're giving a sexual act in exchange for something else. When we use the AMP model, the acts, means, and purpose model, I actually have a handout in the handout section that explains this model even further. It is a great tool that explains human trafficking. The act is anything that includes recruiting, enticing, soliciting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, maintaining, or advertising an individual for sex or labor trafficking. Anything that could be lumped into the act of human trafficking is the acts. The means is how they're doing it, with force, fraud, or coercion. Now, if someone is under the age of 18, a child is under the age of 18, force, fraud, or coercion does not have to be proven when it comes to sex trafficking. A child cannot be sold for sex. They cannot sell themselves for sex. It's common sense. And of course, the purpose, we are talking about sex or labor trafficking. If you're not sure what force, fraud, or coercion is, of course, we have a nice legal definition and some examples of what force, fraud, or coercion is. Now, the question I often get is, okay, Thad, it's happening here, but why? Why does it happen here? And why are people willing to do this? The answer is simple. It comes down to money. It is a big business opportunity. It is a $150 billion industry worldwide. If a victim is being sold online, we know that 1 in 4 victims are being sold online, and 1 in 4 of those victims, they have 10 buyers per day. If someone is selling a person 10 times a day at $100 per event, if you have 3 or 4 girls, that money adds up quick. It's tax-free money. It's money that's, you're paying no taxes on. It is going to add up quick. Another thing is that people can be reused in a business sense, and a horrible thought, but people can be sold over and over and over again. Drugs. You have a car full of marijuana, you have a car full of cocaine, you have a car full of heroin, you sell it once, it's gone. A person can be sold over and over and over again. Another thought is that people are low risk. It is a lot safer for an individual to sell people than it is for them to sell drugs. If someone gets stopped with a car full of cocaine, they're going to be in trouble. They're going to jail. They're going to be prosecuted. If someone is stopped and they have a female in the car with them, they have another person or multiple people in the car with them, as long as they say what they're told, and of course they're going to have coached and rehearsed responses, then no one's going to get in trouble. Everyone is going to go on their way, and it is much less risky. Also, if we take a look at the number of prosecutions of human trafficking across the country and across the state, the number of prosecutions are extremely low. One of the other questions is, why and who? Who are the ones buying this? Well, when we look at it in a business standpoint, it is supply and demand. People are targeting the demand, and the demand are sports events, business travelers, or just married men with children who make more than six figures per year. The market is there. One of the other things we need to think about, and we have to dispel, is the thought that your child is going to be stolen. That they're going to be picked up, they're going to be whisked away and sold into trafficking. That's not likely going to happen. It is more likely that that child will be trafficked and perpetrated on by someone they know. 60% of perpetrators of child sex abuse are known to the victim but aren't family. 30% are family members, and only 10% are strangers. It is more likely that that child will continue to go to school, that child will continue to live in their home, and be trafficked by an individual they know, maybe even their parent. And that's when we get into the different types of trafficking. Of course, we talked about sex and labor trafficking. Individuals perform a commercial sexual act through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. Labor trafficking, an individual performs a labor or service through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. And this does include situations of debt bondage, forced labor, and involuntary child labor. Now, as we said before, when it comes to sex trafficking, if the child is under the age of 18, you do not have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. Now, when it comes to sex or labor trafficking, sex trafficking is easier to prove, it is easier to identify, and it is easier to move forward. Oh, I see a question here. I'll get to that in a second here. Sex trafficking is the easier of the two to prosecute, identify, and to move forward with. Often when it comes to labor trafficking, those cases are harder to prove, except for those extreme cases. Question here real quick, is that referring to the trafficker or the buyer? Is what referring to the trafficker or the buyer, Carla or Caitlin? That is the buyer. That is the buyer. We'll actually talk about the trafficker right now. When it comes to the trafficker and who is trafficking, oftentimes, and especially here in Blair County, we are seeing familial trafficking being the major force. That is the person that is often selling the individual. So when we talk about familial trafficking, we're talking about someone, and unfortunately it goes with that statistic as well, someone the victim knows. We're talking about a family member, we're talking about mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, stepmom, stepdad, someone that the individual knows and that they are related to, that is actually selling this individual, that is actually trafficking them for something in return. We actually, our first ever prosecuted case was of familial trafficking. It was where mothers were allowing this individual access to their children in exchange for drugs. So in that case, she was not being given money, but she was being given drugs. Remember, it's just something of commercial value. Often it is money, but it can be drugs, it can be a place to live. It is just something of commercial value in exchange for sex or something like pornography, child pornography, access to assault that child. CSEC is the commercial sexual exploitation of children. It is the commercial transaction that involves the sexual exploitation of a child, such as the prostitution of children, child pornography, including live streaming of sexual abuse, and the sale and trafficking of children. Remember, and specifically what we've seen here in Blair County is often it has to deal with drugs. That commercial value, that thing of commercial value are drugs. Whether it's the victim trying to gain drugs or the parent of a child exchanging access to their children or pornographic images of their children in exchange for drugs. A few statistics here. The average age a teen enters the sex trade in the United States is 12 to 14 years of age. Blair County is staying on par with that. Often, at least with the case that was prosecuted, the victims were younger. The abuse started when they were 8. It was caught when they were 9. There were other victims as well, but that average age is 12 to 14. 1 in 6 is under the age of 12, and males on average enter the trade at a younger age. There is a strong correlation between exploited youth and childhood sexual abuse, chronic maltreatment, neglect, and an unstable home environment. One of the biggest things to look out for is these victims are often the throwaway kids, the kids whose family has a history of interactions with children and youth. They're the kids that are often missing school. They're the kids that no one really notices when they're not at school because they're absent all the time, because their family has a bad home life, and them going missing, them not coming to school, them being dirty, them not looking like the other kids is normal. For 90% of victims, child trafficking starts in the home. So when we look at CSEC, it often starts in the home, and it is a version of familial trafficking. When we look at familial trafficking, the average age for a victim of familial trafficking in the United States is 5 years of age. When it comes to familial trafficking, some children are victimized as early as infancy. Now, I said this just a few minutes ago, but one of the things we have to remember is there is no perfect victim, especially with the cases that we are seeing here in Blair County. The victims aren't The perfect victim you see on episodes of Law and Order SVU. These victims are often addicted to drugs or alcohol. They often have prior criminal convictions. They have prior arrest records. They're people that are well known to the system, themselves or their families are well known for the wrong reasons. They're the problem families. They're the ones that, you see their name coming through the system and you're like, ah, crap, it's this family again. Oftentimes, these are the victims that are being exploited and sold for sex. Often, like I said before, in exchange for drugs. So who are the traffickers? What is a trafficker? Trafficker is going to target the vulnerable individuals by preying on their personal situations. The truth is, we often have this image of a trafficker, and another name for a trafficker is a pimp. When I say pimp, we often think of an individual in a frilly hat, the Halloween costumes. They have bright colored clothing, they have jewelry, they have chains. They're an individual who has money and they want to show it off. But the truth is, a trafficker can be anybody. Anybody who is willing to take the vulnerabilities of another person and exploit them for their own personal gain can be a trafficker. They lure and ensnare people into forced labor and sex trafficking by manipulating and exploiting their own vulnerabilities. Like I said, it can be anybody. So how do you know if someone is a trafficker? How do you know if someone could be a victim? Oftentimes it comes down to language. We need to quit using outdated terms and outdated jargon. Every industry has their own jargon. Every industry has their own language. Trafficking is no different. That being said, traffickers are never going to call themselves traffickers. They're never going to call themselves a pimp, most likely. Never have we heard a victim say, my trafficker. Never have we heard a victim say, at least here in Blair County, my pimp's name is John. My pimp's name is Bob. My pimp's name is, whatever. That's not the language that they are using. Oftentimes, that language has to deal with family. We're not talking about business terms. We're not talking about law enforcement terms. We're talking about terms based around the family structure. So the trafficker is going to be daddy. The pimp is going to be daddy. He's going to be the head of the household. The other individuals who are being trafficked are going to be the sisters or the sister wives or the wifeys. They are going to be in that family structure. You could also hear language dealing with royalty. He is my king, I'm her queen. Talking with some of the advocates, we literally had a victim who was the queen and her trafficker was her king, and they literally wore sweatshirts. He had a king sweatshirt, she had a queen sweatshirt. You'll often also hear terms that deal with loyalty, about being loyal to each other and about being loyal to the family or being loyal to your king. They want to have that bond so that these individuals are not going to go rat, they're not going to go tell. So like I said, the pimp is going to be daddy, he's going to be the boyfriend, he's going to be the king. The John, the buyer, the person who is actually buying the sex, they're going to be the date, they're going to be working, it's going to be their job. They're not going to say, hey, I'm going to go sell myself for sex down at the corner here to, Bob, I have a date tonight, I'm working tonight, I got a job to do. The other individuals are going to be the sister wife, the wifey, sister-in-law. If we're talking about the bottom bitch, the person who is the in-between between the trafficker and the other girls, she's going to be that sister wife, that wifey-in-law. It's going to be about family. It's going to be about developing that bond so that they stay loyal, so that when or if they get stopped by police, or when or if they're talking to someone about another crime, they're not going to go and say, hey, I'm being victimized. So what about the link between social media? How does social media intertwine between human trafficking and the victims or the sellers, etc.? The internet has drastically reshaped how we buy and sell everything. I don't know about you, I do a lot of online shopping. Most of my Christmas shopping was done online. I barely left my house, especially now because of COVID, to go buy anything in person. The truth is, traffickers understand that as well. The internet has not just changed how we buy and sell goods and services, but it has changed how we sell each other. Absolutely, yes. There is a copy of the presentation, the PowerPoint slides as a PDF in the handout section. If you would like a PowerPoint, I can happily send that to you as well. I have more information on just trafficking as well in other presentations. We'll talk about that at the end. Sorry about that, saw a question. A study performed by the University of Toledo Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute found that social media is increasingly being utilized as a medium to contact, recruit, and sell children for sex. Social media has been used by traffickers to recruit victims, to proliferate their trafficking operations, and to control victims through restricting their social media access. They impersonate the victims, or they spread lies and rumors online. Social media is the #1 tool that traffickers are using to gain access to children, to both recruit them, to sell them, and to continue to hold power and control over those individuals. 83% of active 2020 sex trafficking cases involved online solicitation. This is by far the most common tactic traffickers use to solicit sex buyers. 59% of online victim recruitment is active sex trafficking cases occurred on Facebook. So of those cases that were, individuals being sold and bought on social media, almost 60% were done through Facebook. And we have had victims that have admitted that. We've had victims that have, come forward and said, hey, I was online looking to buy marijuana. I was on social media looking to find someone that could sell me some weed, and I got into the wrong crowd, and now I'm being sold for sex. It is a great way for individuals to gain access and to sell victims, and it's happening constantly. One of the things we have to look at is when it comes to social media, and specifically Facebook, are the encryption of Facebook Messenger. Last year, they were talking about Facebook Messenger being encrypted. I didn't see if this was done yet, but if so, that is going to drastically decrease our ability to catch traffickers who are using Facebook as a way to recruit and contact victims. 65% of underage victims were recruited online in 2020. Active criminal sex trafficking cases, like I said, were recruited on Facebook, and that's underage victims. So when we look at just underage victims, the number that were recruited specifically through Facebook increases again. 14% were recruited through Instagram, and 8% were recruited through Snapchat. So we have Facebook, we have Instagram, Snapchat being the 3 most common tools used by traffickers to solicit and then sell their victims. Of course, TikTok and other platforms are being used as well, but Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat as of 2020 were the 3 biggest. In 2019, Facebook was sued by a 15-year-old sex trafficking survivor. Her trafficker used Facebook to message and groom the child starting at 12. She was 12 years old when he began to message and groom her. He groomed her for a period of 6 months before eventually convincing her to meet up with him at a Motel 6. When she showed up, he reportedly kidnapped her and sex trafficked her on Backpage. This is a case where she was taken from her home and sold as a sex slave. According to the victim's attorney, this story is not unique. The common plot line goes something like this. Traffickers use social media to find and coerce and/or manipulate victims into meeting with them before the trafficker kidnaps and exploits them. I can tell you that I work with children. I meet children all through the county, and I cannot tell you how many times I have talked to a young boy or a young girl after I've been working with them for a few days or a few weeks, or even a few years during the summer. And we'll start to talk, and they'll tell me about this person that they're talking to online, this person that just really wants them to meet them, this person that, you know, they have a lot in common, and they want to meet with this person. They want to go hang out with this person. It's someone their own age or relatively close to it. This happens constantly. I can tell you just about every time I go out where I've, you know, met with kids, I've interacted with them, I have someone telling me about a friend online that they can't wait to meet in person. Now, my red flags go off, you know, but to these kids, it's completely normal. It's completely normal and something that they just do. Her attorney agrees. According to her attorney, they actually represent thousands of victims that have stories that are identical to hers, where they have been contacted, they have been groomed, and they have been manipulated into meeting this person and then being sold for sex by this individual. A trafficker will use social media to connect with a vulnerable young girl. 99 to 96% of the victims are female. She was an easy target because of how unhappy she was at the foster home she was living in. This victim that they were that sued. Something the man immediately garnered from the girl's profile. Remember, if a kid is not told what is okay to put on social media, it is very easy for an individual to see how this person is, see if they're happy, see if they're unhappy, see what their likes are, see what they don't like. In only a matter of hours after an initial social media induced connection, an individual had picked up this girl from a foster home in Toledo and taken her to Columbus to traffic her. This is another real life example of a girl who was met, manipulated, coerced, and then sold online just through social media. And she met him after hours of talking. Social media gives traffickers immediate access to the victims. They also have immediate access to a wealth of information. They know what the victim looks like. They know what their interests are. They know whether they're happy or not. They know where they are. They know who they spend their time with, among other countless information. Traffickers can do their research and contact their victims while protecting their own identities. Throughout the world, 4.3 billion people use social media. We know that 5.7 million are under the age of 11, and they have Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat accounts. Those top three that are used by human traffickers. A Pew Research study found that 95% of teens between the age of 13 and 17 reported having access to a smartphone, and 45% indicated that they are online on a nearly constant basis. A study by the National Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Children surveyed 40,000 school-age children and found that 25% indicated they have live streamed with a stranger on a social media platform. Traffickers have unlimited access to children and their information through social media. Traffickers are drawn to children who post expressions of fear, emptiness, and disappointment. They're looking for the vulnerable individuals that are saying things like, nobody gets me, my life sucks, my parents suck, my parents are horrible, I need to get out of here. Traffickers also look for indicators of substance abuse, runaway activity, and home instability. From there, traffickers will further educate themselves on their potential victim by studying other posts on their social media. Traffickers will exploit vulnerabilities such as common interests between the trafficker and the victim. They learn about the girls and pretend to understand them so that these girls who are feeling not understood, that are not feeling loved, that are not feeling beautiful, these guys are very good at pretending that they are everything that they need at this time. Traffickers will use strategic responses like, I think you're beautiful, I'll encourage you to show your body, and I'll protect you, to get the victim's guard down and establish trust. After that trust is built, traffickers will convince the potential victim to meet up with them. But here's the thing, traffickers don't even have to meet the individual in person. Traffickers can use programs like Zoom, FaceTime, or other video calling apps to live stream sexual abuse or child pornography. The example on the screen here was provided by the Department of Education, and this is an example of a victim who is being live streamed. The child in the middle is being sexually assaulted, and his abuse is being live streamed to the individuals on this Zoom call. This can be done with the trafficker not even ever having to meet the person in person. A trafficker can victimize an individual while keeping their identity completely protected and while never even coming into physical contact with the individual. They can stay in their home, they can stay in a different state, they can stay in a different country and still assault and abuse these children using social media and the internet. Oftentimes they'll coerce the potential victim into sending them a risky picture. Send me a nude, send me a photo of your body. They will then use that photo to extort the victim and to get them to do more for them, to send them more pictures, to send them more videos, to get on a live stream with their friends. They will then, of course, sell that access to other individuals, and then we have trafficking. So, what is Blair County doing about this? Well, since January of last year, we have Blair County HEART. It is the Human Anti-Trafficking Response Team. It is a group of individuals made up of victim services, of law enforcement, of social services, of healthcare, the justice system, the DAs, everybody. It is a group of individuals who are coming together and preventing and trying to stop trafficking in Blair County. Of course, if you suspect that a child is being a victim of abuse, whether it is human trafficking or any type of domestic violence or sexual abuse, please, if you're a mandated reporter, you know this information, but if not, you don't have to be a mandated reporter. You can call Childline, you can file a report online using this information. If you believe that there is an individual who is being trafficked, or you want more information about trafficking or about how you can help, or you know a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, or you yourself are a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, please reach out to our helpline. Our helpline for the Victim Services Program is answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is a local number, 814-944-3585. If you are not able to call, you can text that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to gain instant access to one of our advocates to help you. The Victim Services Program also offers the FSI Justice Project. This provides free civil legal representation to individuals who are victims of domestic violence. For more information on the FSI Justice Project, please reach out at 814-944-3585 to get referred to the program. Also, Women Aware is back. The Women Aware is a free educational support group for women who have experienced domestic abuse with or in their intimate relationships. This group meets once a week for an hour and a half. Members can join at any time. It is absolutely free. If you would like more information on Women Aware, please, 814-944-3585. Our helpline is there for you. If you are interested in more information on human trafficking, if you would like more information or would like to see some of the other presentations or other videos that we've released, all of those can be found at our Go to Stage and our YouTube. Our Go to Stage will have the live, unedited, uncut versions of the webinars available within the hour of completion. Our YouTube will have them within, but they will be edited, cut down, get rid of all of that extra airtime, and they are there for you as well. They can be viewed at any time and shared to anybody. Please feel free to follow us on all of our social media, whether it is on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. Our Center for Child Justice, the CAC, as well as the Teen Center, also have some great information on their Facebook profiles as well. Next, in 2 weeks, the end of January, we will have another awesome webinar coming up. We are going to be looking at stalking in Blair County. As many of you know, January is both Human Trafficking Awareness Month as well as Stalking Awareness Month. So at the end of the month, we are going to have a presentation between myself and our attorney Emily Freed. Will be on here to answer any questions and have a discussion about stalking in Blair County. If you have any questions about stalking, or if you would like more information on what stalking is or what we are seeing here in Blair County, I encourage you to register. Those spots are filling very quick, so if you haven't done so, please register now. As always, our contact information, and of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the question section below. I will hang out as long as I need to answer any and all questions about human trafficking and the link between social media. One of the things to remember before you go is that these victims are some of the most complex victims that we will ever work with. They require a multidisciplinary approach and often require the most help. For a victim that's sold online, an individual who is sold online, they could be sold up to 10 times a day. They could be in the life for 3 to 4 years or longer. We understand that one unwanted sexual assault can affect an individual in such a deep manner. Now think of that 10 times a day, every single day, for years on end. Imagine the amount of trauma that these individuals are going through and the amount of help that these individuals need to recover and to move on and move forward with their lives. You're talking about individuals that will be raped by up to 5,000 different men in their lifetime. The amount of trauma that causes requires so much more help than other victims that we work with. Just something to leave you with before you go. Thank you, everybody. I will, of course, hang out for any questions. If you have any questions or would like more information, of course, I have a ton of resources and articles here. And if you would like to reach me directly, my email is here. I will happily answer any and all questions, either here, or if you would like to contact me through email or phone, you have my contact information. Thank you all very much. I hope you learned something from this and could take something with you. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will see you all on the next Webinar Wednesday.